it stuck with me for a long time, and it really hurt because I really needed his support. He was essentially being selfish.
Hello and welcome to the Prestasi Conversations. I'm Aaron Gould, and I will be your host for this series of in-depth discussions that will cover such topics as sex, human rights, education, trauma recovery, and CSA prevention. Today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Bertie Lynn. She is the author of Through the Storm of Early Trauma, Healing and Overcoming. She's an amazing woman and has a hell of a story to tell. First part of our interview, we covered her upbringing, her strict father, dealing with depression, forgiveness, and friendship. In this episode, we continue some of those threads. We talk about her high school years and her efforts to confront the racism she dealt with on a daily basis. We talk about her running away from home and the horrible events that led to being betrayed by a childhood friend. We talk about her father again and the thing he said to her as she was packing up to leave to go to college. But we start our conversation talking about a life-changing event that she witnessed at a very young age. There was a moment that you talked about in the book that reading it, thinking about how old you were when this happened, and also thinking about at that age, as a child, your surroundings, your house and your neighborhood are almost, for lack of a better word, kind of magical, because your imagination can make it whatever it wants to be. When the harsh reality of life intrudes upon that in childhood, that's got to be devastating. Mo, his death, how did that change your view of the neighborhood and the world around you?
Whew, that was a very, very emotional night. I just, my parents, didn't know this, but and well, they'll know it now that they read the book. Um, of course, then my mom came out and caught me that night,
Right.
unfortunately, while that event was occurring. But they didn't like, when we were in bed, we're supposed to be in bed. But I would, at night, it was like the neighborhood would come alive. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would just be people watching from the window, and
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot of stuff from that. And so I would either, the action was there was this bar that I could see from our living room window that the bar moved out and the SWAT team moved in, Fort Worth SWAT team moved in.
Oh,
That's how
wow.
bad our neighborhood was. But I would watch them because they would be out. I wanted to see how adults interacted. And so I would see them out on the patio of this bar and they'd be drinking. And I'm like, I wonder why they're acting like that, because and it just seemed like their speech slurred. And so
A
I
little
was really,
looser.
yeah, I was just
Yeah.
like a little people watcher. And I would just watch. And I just remember I was watching that night and this truck, had pulled up over there and I could clearly hear him, everybody run and
Yeah.
popped a few bullets in the air. And I still didn't know what it was because I had never, really heard a gun go off. And so, but I saw the pop, the fire,
Right.
from the gun. And so I just remember people just start running. And I remember seeing Mo make it to the dumpster, and I remember seeing the truck speed up behind him, and a guy jump off, run out, and I saw the lights again flash from and the sound of from the gun, and
Right.
I just remember he um, just tipped like that and fell flat on his face,
Oh.
and the truck sped off, and I I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. I was kind of just like that silent scream and I just this tear coming down my eye that I remember it. And then I got super scared because I heard the door open really quick and my mom had come out
Mm-hmm.
and because she heard, well, what ended up happening is our neighbor came out and screamed like it was a guy and he was like no like and he's bolting down the stairs, so it was all this commotion. My mom comes out, scares me because I'm still
Right.
like just looking down at his body, um and she comes out and, what are you doing? Get away from the window. You're supposed to be in bed, and
Yeah.
I'm like, so I run back to bed, and I'm just, all I heard that whole night, sirens, the ambulance, sobbing, um, people screaming, people saying that, they're gonna go get, their gun, and people
Yeah.
saying, no, don't, and it was just, it was horrible. It was a
Yeah.
horrible night, and I just remember all of those noises, but seeing the peace and the happiness, and then all of a sudden the chaos that occurred, and now I'm standing at the window, and so that really changed. I didn't, and thank God I wasn't close enough to see like the bullet damage or any blood or anything like that,
Right.
but I just saw him go down,
Yeah.
and so for me, I didn't really assess that he could die from that bullet. Like I wasn't involved in learning about crime at that time, at that age, to where, I really thought about it like that,
Yeah.
until I heard that he died. And it really placed a sense of sadness. I missed him because he was so nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, there was a sense of sadness, that went along, um, for years after.
Yeah. There's a moment that you discuss in the book that was so just like, yeah, that's awesome. And it's the Oprah poem moment. That must have felt empowering. That must have felt I am here, like I'm here, see me kind of moment. Can you talk
Hmm.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that it did feel great because, and I guess I haven't really shared this part before, but to remember, at that point in time, I still hadn't found my voice inside my home, but I was able to find a voice in that situation at school. And it was a very empowering moment for me because, unbeknownst to them, not only did I draw from the anger of being discarded because of the color of my skin, and being treated horribly, I was drawing from the anger of, the way I was treated at home, you
Yeah.
know. And so, but they didn't know that part. But that's where all that passion and that drive and the energy came from, and me just, writing out those frustrations, and putting it on that stage and dropping the mic. I wish I
Yeah.
would have dropped the mic. That would have been epic.
That would have been
But
amazing. That would have been
and then I could say, and I dropped the mic and walk out.
done. Yeah. She walked out of school and never came back.
Right, right. um, but man, that was an amazing moment. It was even more amazing to watch Oprah perform it, in at the Essence Awards. Um, and I just remember, um, and that was in '95. I watched her perform that, and I just remember when she was on stage, she captivated everybody in that audience, and she captivated my attention. Like I was up on the TV screen, like, just
It's
looking at
Oprah.
her, and she was just like, she just said it with so much, just pride, and, just she took ownership, and man, it was she definitely captured my attention that day, and I remember walking away with a sense of pride for the color of my skin, and, for, being a black, young girl. And I never really had to deal with racism up front, at that time. But I just remember it, with me, it came more with a sense of, I am beautiful. I am powerful. Black is beautiful, and,
Yeah.
as I didn't hear those compliments a lot. What I did see is every time I turn on the TV screen is I didn't see a little girl who looked like me. I saw a little girl who was either white, or I saw, she was near white, like,
Yeah.
I think mixed, women at that time were more in. You had the curly hair, everything that they had, like my hair is curly, but it's not like that curly that makes
Right.
like, and so it's just like I didn't see this, and so I didn't feel like, I mean, honestly, it made me feel as a young girl like I'm not, I could never be in that setting because I'm not that girl. I don't look like that. But yeah, when I got on that stage, I was like, I was gonna let them know that I don't care if you don't sit at the lunch table with me anymore. I don't care if you keep dropping the N word. I don't care if you don't talk to me. I don't care if don't help me with, the homework, like when we were in group sessions and it was just like, they would avoid that. And it's like, I don't care anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I know you don't like me because I'm black, but guess what? I like me because I'm black, and deal with it.
Yeah.
Now drop the mic.
Yeah.
That's just
And
summarizing.
then there you go. And was there, after that moment, was there ever anybody that came up to you and apologized or wanted to make a connection after that?
Not really that apologize,
Hmm.
more so, hey, I'm so and so. That was an amazing speech you did, So
Right.
yes, they came and they recognized, and then it was, I gained instant friends, and they were. I mean, then I had to pick whose lunch table I was sitting,
Right.
And so it really opened up doors for me then. Of course, I still had adversity for the color of my skin at that school because not everybody took to it, but a majority of the popular people and, just, people who appreciated the fact that I stood up for myself,
Right.
those are the ones that I, you know, came up and made me feel welcome after that and things like that. Even the
Okay.
staff, even the teachers. So.
Oh, fantastic. It made that much of an impression beyond the students as well as the staff. That's
Well,
fantastic.
I was the only African American girl in that school. And it's so funny because people like, you were the only one? And what year was this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. You went go live in Clackamas, Oregon, during that time, and we barely even saw any other black people who lived in the neighborhood. But it's
Hmm.
funny, the people that talk to and some other interviews I've done, and they've been from that area. They're like, yeah, I could definitely see that because I remember only seeing. One lady told me there was one black girl in their school and one black boy, and they were both brothers and sisters.
Well, there you
So,
go. After that, you ran away,
hmm,
and that led to a series of events that
yeah.
happened that I think definitely shaped and changed a lot of things for you. Trey is obviously, I would think the majority. Reading that, the sense of helplessness that you felt in that moment, you conveyed it. It came off the page. I felt helpless reading it and wanted to do something. It was a very tough section to get through, but important
Hmm.
to who you are today. My first thing I want to ask is about him. I know you never saw him again after that. You said in the book that you never saw him again. But did you ever speak to anyone about his actions? And was there ever any sort of repercussion for what he did to you?
No. Um, yeah, I don't care to even follow up on that. He was like a brother
Yeah,
um for those years that we grew up, and never thought in a million years that someone I knew like a brother. We grew up together. We experienced a lot of things together in that neighborhood. Um, that he would do that and hurt me like that in a million years.
as I'm sure to write it must have been difficult. I would think.
Well, and that's why I had my counselor after every like
Yeah,
having to relive those moments and going to, kind of talk them out then after that and sort through those emotions that came up.
yeah. And having written it and gone to your counselor afterwards, have you been able to let go of anything from it or find a distance from it? Like, has it?
So in that instance, like it doesn't, there was a sense of anger that used to control my life.
Mm,
And I hated men, and I hated my body, and um there was a lot, right, to that. Um I just I felt violated on both sides, from both sexes, female and
sure.
male. And so at that point I'm like, but I mean, after after that happened, because he did it that first time violently, so, and then came back with, um I mean, all I heard was, a heavy piece of metal hit the nightstand when he put it down, and so I just figured that was a gun, because at that
Mm,
point, if his mom came out, I knew that it would mean a lot, probably change his life if she knew that he was, doing that. So I better not
yeah.
make a sound. But it really, you know, for his younger brother, when they came back in the middle of the night, and for, you know, them to come back and bring the younger brother, and then he, hearing me pleading, he turned around and it's like, I'm not doing this, and he walked away. Well, why didn't he help me? Why didn't he go get
Right.
his mom? Why?
Right.
And that's a problem that we have, I think, as a society, is that, you know I think other men can be so, much more effective. um People in general, like, right, if you just speak up when you see somebody being abused or harmed, and don't be
Yeah.
afraid. But maybe he was afraid because maybe he did see that his brother had a gun, and
Yeah.
maybe he didn't know what he would do with that if he did go. So I mean, there are so many different perspectives, but at the same time, you could have at least tried.
You wrote something in your book here. Life roughly whipped me and shaped me into the woman I am. What was the moment, the insight to that realization came to you? What was like? Because we sometimes we go through life and we just kind of take what comes at us, but to have that clarity to realize like, oh, this is all shaped me into who I am now. What was
Hmm.
that moment like for you? Like, when was that moment?
Yeah, so that moment happened between 30 and 35. I just remember looking back, just to, all of the choices that I had made, and what resonated from those choices. Um, so one of the things, and by the way, writing this book it was a cathartic moment in my life, right? So I was just able to kind of release a lot, and just, you know, to even have after having to relive these moments, it helped me to better understand how much I had grown. You can't get through life, um, just easygoing. Like, life is going to present challenges and adversity, and you have to get through them. Now, how bad those adversities, moments are in your life, how hard they are. I mean, it really depends on, the choices that you make and who you surround yourself with and the environment that you're in, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
When you're a child, you really don't have control over that. And as a child, I didn't have control over my environment. I did have control over my voice, but I didn't have a voice because of the way that, my father ran his household. Like,
Hmm.
and so I felt shut down. It couldn't be me.
Sure. Yeah. Um, the last thing I want to say about your father, the last thing he said to you when you were leaving home, the name he
Yeah,
called you.
that hurt. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I almost threw my computer across the room. I was when I read that because what a thing to
Yeah.
say. It must have just been like, really more of this, like, just it seemed like a level of abuse that he hadn't
Hmm.
gone with. And it was, yeah, what was that? Must have just,
He he kissed me on my forehead and he said, "Goodbye, Judas." And I just, I remember just standing there and it hurt. It really hurt because, I was 18 and I was leaving. He always said that we can leave at 18. So I was leaving. And, you know, I didn't want to be involved in ministry. I didn't want to be involved in the church. I didn't want to do this. I want to do that. I wanted to go live my life. And I wanted him to be supportive of that. But when he had, rules that were still restrictive to me having a personality, then I'm not going to stay in that environment anymore. I'm going to run as soon as I get the freedom to move. And so, I remember just standing there looking at
Yeah.
him and just turning around and walking away and shaking my head. Because at that time, I'm like, who's he think he is, Jesus? Like, you know, calling me Judas? Like, so, um,
Right.
those words that he decided to leave with me that day, it stuck with me for a long time, and it really hurt because I really needed his support. He was essentially being selfish and um, self-centered, and just in order, and seeing that he has a daughter and he has a family, and he chose to put his full 110% into a church, and we came before the church, and so um
Yeah.
that was just one of the things that I just, for the longest time, I couldn't get over, and it caused me, it added on even more on top of the anger that this man really doesn't see it, like, that he has flaws, like, at all.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, and I really want to encourage people to check out the book and read it, because I think a lot of things that you went through are things that people can relate to, and hopefully find some guidance in your path, and can lead them to areas that they can go to get help, to feel better about themselves, to feel that self empowerment. You have four words that you talk about: acknowledge, process, heal, overcome. And I think that's an important words for people that are dealing with abuse and want to move forward. Is there anything else that you would like to leave with the viewers, the listeners?
Yeah, so I mean, if you haven't read my book, you can get the audio ebook or hardcover paperback option on Amazon. It's also on Goodreads, BookBaby, and Barnes and Nobles. And also, if you go onto my website, birdielyn.com, you will see that I've created a workbook just to go through my book. So you have me right there hand holding and with you, and I go over those steps that you mentioned, um, and just really break it down on how I did it. And I also have, adult coloring pages, a vision board, you know, uh, strategizing, like game planning on how you're going to heal and overcome. So you're not by yourself and you're not alone. And that's why I wanted to create this workbook.
Fantastic. I didn't get a workbook. I'm just saying I had to had to read the book without a workbook, but I'll let it go. I will let it go this once. Birdie, thank you again. You are an amazing woman with a tremendous heart and just a beautiful soul. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us
Thank
today.
you. I'm glad to be here.